Yeah, you're on mute. Take it. So I'm going to leave you there a second, and then I'll introduce you. Okay. Yay! Hello, and welcome to an episode of Equine Voices podcast. My name is Ronnie, and I'm your host. Now, we had a few little technical problems, so hopefully Susan can get on. She's here now. She's in the studio, so I'll bring her on board, and then she can introduce herself. So this interview is with Susan Regina Glick, and she's an equine assisted healing coach. I'm reading off my list. Her website on Facebook is Heart Song Equine. She's also a photographer, but she's got loads of talents. And I'm not going to do a long drawn out introduction. I'm just going to get Susan on and she can introduce herself. And then we'll go from there. Fingers crossed. Okay. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here finally. I feel like there was a lot going on there for a little bit.
I'm not going to lie, my heart is in my mouth because it's always a little nerve wracking. And I'm at my dear friend's house who's let me use her computer. So again, it's something I'm not used to. I've used it a few times, but anyway, we're here now. So, would you like to introduce yourself? Just give a brief description on who you are, where you are today, and then we'll go a little bit back and find out how you got to this place. Is that okay? Oops, you've frozen. Let's hope that's just a little glitch. Are you okay?
Oh, are you there? It cut out for a bit.
Yeah, I can still
So
see you. So don't worry if
I'm good. I'm here. It just cut out for a bit, so I don't know what your question was. I heard you say that you're gonna let me introduce myself, and then
Whoops. Yep. So if you can still hear me, if it freezes, don't panic. Just
oh,
can you hear me? Can you hear me, Susan?
I can. Oh, there you are. Now I can hear
There
you.
you are. Okay. Listen, don't panic. If it
Okay,
all goes to pot,
wonderful. We're back.
we can do this again. So let's just go with the flow. Just take a breath. Don't worry. This is just technology.
Wonderful,
This is
wonderful.
how it goes. So if
Okay,
you don't mind
it's
doing
amazing when it works.
if you don't mind introducing yourself and say as much as you like, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So, it feels like introducing myself should be like an easy question because, like at this point, I feel like I should I should know who I am and I should know my identity and have all of that figured out. But I feel like even just in the last several weeks, things change really quickly, and sometimes sometimes things come up and I get to work through them all over again. But right now, today, who I feel like I am is um, I am someone who has been amazingly blessed to have horses in my life who have taught me a lot of things and people in my life. Horses have brought a lot of different people into my life that have taught me a lot. And today I feel like I am here to learn. And so that feels like a big part of my identity today. Is that a weird answer? Like, not, I feel like it changes by the day sometimes. But what's solid for me is that I'm a believer. I'm a Christian. I love horses and I love my family and I love the people that God has put in my life and is putting kind of here and there on my journey that I get to interact with and learn from. And I'm just really happy to be here today.
Brilliant. That's perfect. I'm just going to actually just swap us around a minute because that's better. I feel like I'm staring in the wrong direction. It's just the way the camera is working.
There we go.
That's perfect. So you can talk about as much or as little as you want. So let's start back at the beginning. So how did horses come into your life? I know that you've had them around for a long time, but if you just tell the viewers and the listeners, how did horses come into your life?
Yeah, so I was raised in an Amish community, so my family is still Amish. I grew up in the community, and horses, as a lot of people know, are a big part of the Amish lifestyle, as they don't typically drive vehicles. Um, so, they have like the horse and buggies. Horses are still used um, as a big part of like the farming lifestyle for the Amish who are farmers. And so I grew up with horses, and but the horses I grew up with and the part of my life that horses were in is very different than it is now for me. Um, because at that point, as a young girl, horses were, or as like growing up Amish, horses are a part of of your life, but they're like they're like not a I don't want to sound like crude, but they're like basically they're a way to get around, right? They're like a tool. They're like a tractor we keep in the garage. Like um there's not much of a thought given to uh, the horse being a living being with emotions and ideas of its own. It's we raise them, we train them, they do their job, and that's the part horses played in my life as an Amish girl. But I was also very attached and attracted to the idea of connecting with horses from a young age. I don't really know how that started. I just love being around horses. And so pretty soon I knew I was gonna have a pony, and the pony was gonna be my best friend. And um, that already at that point was a little bit of a different twist on like typical young Amish girl growing up with horses around. So um, that's how horses came to be in my life. And then when I left the Amish community, that was obviously a choice I made to keep them in my life, and to at that point they were a huge part of my life. So um, I guess there's kind of two different phases of it, but that's how it got started for me.
So I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know a huge amount about Amish communities. Only what I've seen on films and things. So I understand that the horses were there to farm the land, to get around, as you said, like a car. So that's not a judgment thing or anything. That's how it was, and you can say the same for rural UK, England. Horses were very much part of the farm. They were there to do a job, and it can vary between different families, whether there was more of a relationship built working horse, or just, we feed the horse, we look after it because it's got to do a job, sort of thing. So, yeah, so I understand that side. So when did it change for you? When was the more of a connection, and what did that mean for you?
So I think that for me started um, when I was like I don't actually know how old I was. I was probably 8 years old. I I was like an avid reader, so I read all the horse books I could get my hands on, and I read books like the Black Stallion and Misty of Chincoteague and books like that, where the person and the horse had like this magical connection. And I was like, I really want that with a horse. I really want to have a pony of my own and have that with my pony. And so I think that's part of where it came from, or where like the recognition of it came from, and like inside of me, I guess. And then when I got my pony, things didn't look like that, because I got a 2-year-old miniature Shetland cross, and just she loved her life, and I loved her, but um, she was a handful for a 10-year-old who didn't really know how to work with horses. Or I shouldn't say I didn't know how to work with horses, because I knew how to work with horses in like the Amish sense, right? Like you tell them what to do and they do it, and my pony didn't do that. And so I started learning I had to be her friend so that she wanted to be with me. And initially for me, that looked like, it's a very selfish, uh, now to me, it looks like at that point it was a really selfish relationship. Like I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be your best friend so that you want to do what I ask. And like now, like if we jump forward all of these years, now where I'm at is like I want to be everything I can for the horses just because they are amazing, not because they can do something for me in return. Um, which is a huge switch. When you make that switch in your brain and it doesn't happen overnight. Like I'm still weeding out like these mindsets and these ideas about kind of, it's like kind of an entitlement almost like, well, I take care of you, I do this, I do that for you, so you should be willing to, be my horse and do the things I ask. And now at this point, like I said, I'm still like weeding out some of that, but uh, the difference in the mindset when I started and from what is now still a lot of the outlook or the mindset around horses in the Amish community to where I am now is huge. Like there's no comparison, and it's not a like you said, like it's not a judgment. It's just I had to get to a place where I was accepting, like willing to face that that's how I used to be, um, and willing to like own that before I could start thinking about ways to change it in order to help horses in the community and in my life. So I feel like I kind of went on a bunny trail there, but maybe that answers your question.
No, that was perfect, and I was smiling when you said about the Shetland. I think that's a universal universal thing. My friend here
Yeah,
has Shetlands, and yeah, they've got their own mindset. Well, most horses do actually, but yeah,
they're
Shetlands
amazing.
especially. They
Yeah.
are they
Oh, they're
they are
great.
beautiful.
And yeah, yeah, and like they're, you know, it was a great way for me to learn that I don't get to always have my way just because I'm the boss, you know. Um, I guess I think they're great training ponies for young kids because they will probably uh, make you or break you as a horse person.
Yeah, you have a conversation with them. You don't tell them what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to pop. So Gail, she's an animal communicator, and Gail's been an honoured guest on my podcast too. So she's saying hi from Canada. Hi, Gail. Lovely to have you join us. Um,
Yeah.
so if anybody wants to ask Susan any questions, by the way, please feel free to just drop a comment, and then oh, okay. So this is my friend. So this is my friend Sam, who's at a house I'm at now, and she's got Shetlands. Shetlands are the best. She wants a herd of Shetlands.
I love that. That's so cool. I wish I could
Yeah,
have a herd of Shetlands, but
yeah.
I ended up, for some reason, just like collecting horses here and there, and now I have one Shetland and one mini, and that's probably all the ponies I can handle for now.
That sounds very much like Sam. She collected the Shetlands that she has actually were party ponies. They were used for children's
Oh,
parties, and she ended up having them at the farm where she used to live, because they didn't have a lot of grazing. The lady that owned them, but she passed away, so she acquired these Shetlands. Yeah, three actually, two miniatures and yeah,
oh.
three three. But anyway, so Gail. So this is for the benefit of the audio afterwards. Hello, way to go, Susan, on recognizing that horses have feelings and could be our wonderful friends. So that's Gail again. I was going to ask you a question. It's just gone out of my head now. Okay, right. I'll tell you what we'll do. So I know you do clinics and you do workshops. And of course, I came across you from Locki's website. It was his Facebook page actually, and you'd put a beautiful post on there, which I did share on my page, and I can tag on to this video afterwards. And it was just beautiful words. So would you like to say in your words what horses mean to you? And the depth of that, because I could read it out, but it's more it would be better coming from you. So you don't have to say it word for word, but just the meaning behind that.
So can you just run it past me again really quick because it cut out a little bit? I think you're talking about the post that Locki had shared that you saw.
Yes, so it's a picture of you. It's a black and white picture, and you just wrote about the meaning of what you said about the meaning of God and what God means to you within the horses and how that brings. I can't. I see. I'm not doing it justice. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I think I remember the post. I'm pulling it up on my phone just so I can
Yeah.
like
I
actually put myself back in that space because
It was very heartfelt. If
I
I
really
should have.
appreciated. Yeah.
If I was
Um,
more organized, I could have got that on and shared it on. It doesn't matter. It's
oh,
just
oh,
it was just the feeling behind that, and it was just and that's what prompted me to contact you and say, would you like to do a podcast interview?
yeah. So what I think the feeling I was having when I wrote that post was about how I was starting to I was having this feeling like there's been like this clearing out happening, and like I was saying before, where I'm like weeding out these old mindsets, and I'm seeing that a lot of what I thought I knew is being replaced with just so I think to be able to articulate it well, I need to kind of explain some of the process of what happens, kind of, or what's been happening in my life at the same time. It's kind of mirrored my journey with horsemanship has been this journey of like leaving the Amish lifestyle, and it's kind of been like parallel lines happening where, um, you know, Amish is supposed to be a lifestyle. Um, it tends to kind of be conflated even in the culture as a religion instead. And that was something that I had a really hard time with as a girl. And at the same time that I was processing through all of that and weeding out some of that and working through it, um, I was doing the same thing in my horsemanship where all of these techniques and these rules and all of these mindsets I'd been taught in horsemanship were starting to kind of fall apart and not work anymore and not work for me and my horses. And I was looking for something different. And, you know, I went to a few different types of trainers who were more gentle, right? Like, you know, more liberty, more fill in the blank. And I thought it was better, but it still wasn't quite what I wanted. And it still didn't really feel like home for me in horsemanship. And kind of along the same lines, I looked for, you know, different churches and different, you know, different places to call like my community after I left like the Amish. And I've come to a point where I believe that, so I believe in God. I am uh, very very confident in my belief in God and in my salvation in Jesus Christ. But I believe that even a lot of times in the like religious Christian circles, we get it wrong. We start to look for, um, even after we are what people call saved, we look for things outside. We look for salvation and peace and everything outside of ourselves. And I've come to a place in both like spirituality and religion in a sense, and in my horsemanship, where I believe that everything we're looking for is already inside of us. And that has probably been the biggest game changer, the biggest like mind shift for me has been realizing that what we're looking for, what everyone is looking for, is already inside of them. Like they already have it. Um, because if you really think about it, and this might, you know, this might be getting too like technical and using too many like, you know, Christiany words or whatever for some of your audience, because I'm very understanding and respectful of the fact that like not everybody is on the same page with it as I am. Um, but there's something that we call, obviously there's something we call sin, and in my mind that's just being not aligned. That is just, to me, what that means is just being separated from God, which is just being out of alignment. And so that is probably one of biggest the biggest it feels like it's like just a little difference, but it's probably the biggest difference in how I have come to connect with God and with horses and with other people and with myself than the way I was raised. So I don't know if that really covers your question about the post, but that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at in all of it.
Yes, no, it didn't. As you were talking, I have. Um, so you're aware that I use my own guidance, my intuition, and as you were talking, it was like it's the connection to yourself, and so you said that it's your connection to yourself, and I think that's when you was talking about you was trying different ways to work with your horses and it's different training things. Again, that's all external. And yeah, I mean, we do, as humans, we look for information to try and help and try and guide us. And it's brilliant as long as we start to feel that within us as well. So as long as it feels right and resonates, and what can work a few weeks ago and is perfect, once you move on, it might not be the same feel anymore. So rather than stay with something that's not working and it doesn't feel quite right, you'll start to listen to your own guidance, your own feel. Again, it's hard to put into words sometimes. And horses are very good at showing us to be present, to be present at that very moment, because 5 minutes later, the whole story might be completely different. And if you reflect back on you and realize, where am I now that the horse is showing me something? Yes, I might want to go out and do something, but am I listening to what the horse wants to do? And it's not a case of, well, you shouldn't let an animal tell you what to do. It's not that at all. It's, are they ready? Are they making sure that we're present? Are we listening? Because if we're not listening to ourselves, our own guidance, which is from them too, then how can we communicate? How can we be a partnership? And where you are is you're a partnership. So it's not about you wanting to do something all the time. It's you wanting to make something better, to have that connection. But again, these are just words. Sometimes words are not enough and they don't quite put the picture, but that's all we have. So that's what we've got to work with. Does that make sense, or have I gone off on a tangent, Susan?
No, that was amazing. I love that. And it makes sense to me because I totally understand. I totally agree with what you're saying because it's almost like we can look all day for something outside of ourselves. And the reason that, and I think there's probably going to be people, who knows, there's probably some people who are going to be like, how can you say what you're saying and still consider yourself a Christian? And I don't necessarily um, like I've had some conversations with people who have asked me that, like that basically goes against what a lot of people think of as a Christian and have believed themselves their whole life that they're Christians. I think that the church, if we want to call it that, has a really big problem with teaching, like they teach good principles and they forget that the point of these principles is not necessarily just like to get somewhere, like to go to heaven, to go whatever, but it's so that you can live fully alive in the moment. I believe that's the purpose. That's like the whole story, is to be able to live fully alive. And horses have horses have been huge with that, like to teach me that. I just don't think that we need to go searching for everything outside of ourselves, because if we are living in our true identity, our full true identity, We have everything because God is in us. God is in everything. It's all connected, and then it should just flow. And that's probably, I would say that's the biggest thing that horses have taught me in the last probably 4 years. Probably they've been teaching me that all my life, actually, and it's come to this point now. But they've been, especially in the last several years, I've been learning that from horses. But yeah,
But
that
then
was a really good tangent you just went on.
yeah, oh, thank you. I do that quite often. But then maybe who's to say that's maybe your journey, what um because you've learned so much about yourself through that. It doesn't mean to say that if you had another journey, you wouldn't have learned that. But at this present moment, your past has molded where you are now and today, and your beautiful horses. Shall we talk about now? Is it Sundance?
Yes, we shall. We
Yes.
absolutely shall.
So let's talk about Sundance and the amazing journey there. So again, I don't do too much background because I want to listen to you as the listeners are. So, but I know a little bit. So if you tell us about Sundance and how you two guys met, and yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit of your
absolutely.
journey.
Yeah. So Sundance came into my life when I was 12 years old. My cousins who lived across the street from my farm, their farm is right across the street from my family's farm. They bought her at an auction, and she was sold as like suspected pregnant, so she was in foal. And they brought her home and they rode her, and she did like okay, and she was like she bucked and whatever, but like she didn't like hurt anybody. Um, she was just kind of in their minds being like sassy pony, bratty little thing, whatever. All of the labels that female horses in pain get, unfortunately. And so they had her for half a year. She had her baby. And then half a year later, so a full 12 months after they had bought her, they were going to send her back to the same auction because it was an annual local like horse and pony auction. They were going to send her back because at that point she had become like unhandleable, basically unmanageable. She didn't let anyone catch her. Um, she had had her foal, and then obviously like they were doing things with the foal, and she was being a really really protective mom. And so they decided they were just going to resell her and keep the baby. And I, in the meantime, had been walking home from school past her pasture and got to know her. And I would feed her like my apple core from my lunchbox or my leftover carrot sticks or whatever, just like hang out with her and spend time with her. And got to know her a little bit. And I decided that this is not something I'm willing to let happen. I don't want her to go back to the same auction, and I'm never going to see her again. And at the time, I wasn't gonna buy another pony or a horse. At the time I had my little miniature Shetland, and I was gonna keep her and maybe get a bigger horse when I'm a little older. And this was when I was 13. And I went home and told my mom I need to buy her. Like I don't want to let her go. And I had been saving up some money for a new saddle for my pony. And so instead of buying a new saddle, I bought Sundance for $200. And it took my dad, by the time finally when we were able to catch her, which took probably a good half hour or more for us to catch her in her pasture. And then it took him another half hour to 45 minutes to lead her the like quarter mile in my driveway. So she was in a lot of pain and a lot of emotional discomfort. She didn't like being around people at the time. We don't know anything about her past prior to my cousins getting her at the sale or at the auction. But I believe she had some kind of unfortunate experience with men because it was specifically men that she really didn't like. My dad would walk past her stall and she would turn around and double barrel the door just from him like walking past. She was so not interested in interacting with men. And she also had a big aversion to whips. So those two things combined made me just feel like she probably at some point didn't have a good experience. I don't like just attributing or labeling um, horses being feeling free to share their opinions as, oh, they must be traumatized. Because at this point, I don't like being the person who is just labeling it as trauma all the time. Um, but I believe she had something in her past. I don't know what. And so we worked through some of that, just like her and I connected with her, tried to connect with her, kind of the same as I tried to connect with my pony. Um, and at the same time, though, at that point, my goal was ride her, do the things with the horse that you do with a horse. Um, and she wasn't really having it. She was always a little more, sometimes she was more agreeable to it, but she always protested. Um, excuse me. I know now that she had or has a lot of, you know, physical issues, like a lot of tension. She carries a lot of tension in her neck and her head. Um, and so that was, looking back, she was probably in a lot of pain and she was just trying to tell me that. And so I had a lot of, riding accidents with her that I wouldn't tell my mom about. So fast forward, we're like just kind of skipping through some of those years because that's kind of all a blur for me. Where she was, we were doing okay. We had a lot of discussions, her and I, about this, and we would come to kind of an agreement, and we would go on trail rides, and we had fun. I had fun. Um, she tolerated it probably. And fast forward to when I was 17. I was at our Horse World Expo here in Pennsylvania, and I saw for the first time. Well, I had seen Liberty work and Liberty training before, but I saw like a partnership type of Liberty, like more like there's different styles of Liberty work, and I had seen like the really flowy, dancey, happy, where there's like 10 horses running around and it's really pretty. I saw for the first time a trainer who was just like looked like he was just the same being as his horse. Like he was just working so closely with his horse in a partnership. And I was like, that's what I want. I'm going to do that. Like that's the thing. And I went home and it was like, okay, Sundance, we're going to do Liberty work. And Sundance was like, you didn't ask me. She was like, no, I'm all right. Thanks. Um, and so that kind of threw me for a whole other loop because I was like, oh, like if I give her a choice, of course she'll choose me. And she was like, no, you've not been understanding me or asking me for all these years. Why would I now choose you? So that was 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago that we started that. And Sundance is now 24. We started doing once I started learning about like the emotional healing stuff for myself and for my horses and working through some of those things with them together, um, that's when it really flipped a switch for Sundance, and like, she really started loving the Liberty work. I learned different techniques and different styles of Liberty and training methods and that kind of thing. And so for Sundance, there's like two different sides to her Liberty work. She's really good at telling me, just like telling me off, being like, no, if I am willing to hear it. Um, she's also at this point very well trained in certain Liberty things. And so now my challenge now with her is making sure I'm open enough to hearing her because I have taught her that I hear her. And when I ignore her, sometimes she would just go into like robot mode and do the thing anyway. And so I'm learning that some of the things we've been doing for years at this point, she really, really hates to do. And she's just done it because, we've been doing positive reinforcement. And she's learned that I like it and she wants to please me now. And so that's my recent, especially with working with Locki a bit and getting to know him and his program a little. That's been my kind of recent eye opener has been that she actually some of these things she really doesn't like to do, and she's currently 24. So I don't want to be forcing her to do things that are painful or just like I don't want her to have to do things she doesn't want to do at this point. She's 24 years old. We're not like I don't need her to perform so that I can live. I don't need her to help me, go hunt or go to war. Like she's she's my horse and I love her no matter what happens. And or I'm her person, I guess, more than she's my horse. And she, I don't love her because of what she can do for me. So that's been probably the big that's the big shift that's been happening back to like the post you were talking about. This the big shift that's been happening in my um life, just like spiritually and emotionally and in horsemanship. So
That was lovely. That was a great explanation. And it's a big commitment. So when horses take up a lot of time and a lot of finances, and it's a 24/7 job. It's not like you can get a day off. It's something you do every day, and you've either got to love it or not. So as you said earlier, sometimes your expectations, even with the best will in the world, even myself at times, I'll go, just give us a break, Toots. I just, just give us a break. I'm doing everything I possibly can. And she'll walk off and look at me and I'll go, okay. And sometimes you get in just doing mode. And a little example is she was having a feet trim the other day and she adjusts her weight and she's very good with the trimmer because she communicates. But initially when the trimmer comes, she'll go, oh, trimmer's here, walk off. And I'll go, Toots, Natalie's kind. She listens to you because a previous trimmer was very, very good, but got very busy and it was all a rush. And you know what comes with that sometimes. So and then she stops and then she comes back. And while she's being trimmed, she was rubbing herself head on me. And I was going, Toots. And then she just adjusted and what was she saying to me? Because she's my horse, so sometimes it's slightly different. Is I need to adjust my body. And it was the slightest thing. And she lifted the leg up ready for Natalie before she asked. Because she has a few physical things, but again, like you, I try not focus on them. It's not a pity focus, otherwise that's a different thing altogether. And anyway, she shifted her weight and it was really subtle and I could have missed that. And to anybody else, that wouldn't have been anything that they maybe would have noticed unless they're aware of it. So I said to Natalie, oh my goodness, I wasn't listening. She just wanted to adjust her body. She did really well and she picked her foot up before I asked for it. I said, yeah, because she knew what was coming. So, but that's an example of listening. But you get into doing mode, which is what we all do and with the best intentions. And my favorite thing is just to be watching the horses. So I'll sit with them, especially evening time. I love it. And at the minute it's summertime and I'll just watch them and listen. And I get so much from that because I'm just observing and they communicate all the time. So this podcast is about horses and communication and intuition and everything else that goes along with that. But it's so much more because you are part of them and they're part of you. And somebody told me once a while ago when I used to get into a bit of a down and say, why can't I do the same as I do for other horses with my own? And they said, because the flow through you is very similar to Toots. So you can't always feel that because it feels like you and vice versa. Now, that's quite a statement without adding more to it, but I can't at this time. But I went, right. And so the nearest thing I can explain that to is when you're riding a horse, if you're riding your horse and you're out having a ride and you get into that flow where they just want to go for a gallop or a canter and you start cantering in the field or wherever and you just feel at one with that animal and it could be a few seconds and you just there's no separation. You feel part of that animal's body because you're moving in sync. That is it. That's the flow. And then you get so excited that you lose it. Because you get excited, you think, oh my God, I've got it. I've got whatever that is. I've got it. I want that back. So you try. And it's the trying sometimes because it's more external trying rather than
Mhm.
pulling back and just going with that flow again. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Oh, absolutely. I totally hear what you're saying, and I love the part about the trying versus being, because in like I think I think at this point I believe that this is every part of our lives.
Mm.
That when we try, we stop being, we can't just be. And I'm not saying don't put effort into things, but there is a lot of value in in stillness and presence, like you were saying, like listening to the horses and just being present with them. And there's there's a lot of value in, and like I've had these breakthroughs, like spiritually and emotionally, with just being present, and not even just like being in stillness, but my mind is still going. Like, I mean, actually just stop. And it does something, it aligns something. I don't know that I have the education or the knowledge to really explain what's happening all the time, but I've what it feels like to me is that like my spirit and my soul and my body are coming into alignment. Like my body is slowing down so that, or go stepping back into alignment with everything else. So that's what it feels like to me.
That's a perfect, well, that's a perfect example as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's being at one. Because sometimes your mind has an idea, but if you listen to the quietness of the feel, what feels right, because sometimes you think, no, I know I should be doing that, and this should be going on, but I don't feel that. So why is that then? It's because you're connected to this part, which is the all-knowing part of you there.
Right.
Yeah. Again, sometimes it's hard to put into words. I was trying to give you an example then. I think one example is this was quite a few years ago. I struggled to get on my horse too. But I mean, but I always knew it wasn't just to do about with horses. There was something within me that I needed to overcome. Anyway, I'm going to condense it because you don't get a whole essay. I had somebody come and help me, and he did an amazing job, and he did what I needed at that moment. But I still knew I had to do it, not somebody else, because again, I wasn't trusting myself. And he did help me. I got on my horse, and there was all this emotion. But it was a little while afterwards, and it was a friend actually. She works with the mind, and it's the programs that we have in our mind, and she helps bypass that to sort of quieten that and just put a slightly different program in. It's not, I don't know, that sounded wrong. It sounded like brainwashing, does it? It's not like that at all. It's just bypassing that trigger. There's always a trigger. Oh, I recognize that emotion. Let's go there. Don't do that. It's dangerous. We can't do that. Let's stay safe. Let's stay safe. So they sort of bypass that. And it was nothing to do with horses. It was just chit chat. And I went out to my horse, and I used to take all my things out and not have an agenda. But if she was in the right place and I was, we'd have a go getting on. And getting on, I mean, just swinging my leg over and sitting on my horse and getting off. That was getting on. Anyway, this day I'd usually have really jelly legs, like, my legs would just go so weak. And I was walking out the field, and I thought, well, I know I should be having jelly legs because my mind's telling me that, but there's nothing there. I'm fine. So I went out to the field. So even though my mind was saying, no, you should be feeling nervous by now, I was going, yeah, but I don't. Because I'd bypassed that. It was like, but you
Yeah.
should feel nervous. No, but I don't. So basically, I got on my horse too, and it was like, I've done it. I've bypassed that little chatter that comes in every time with the right intentions to start with, but then it gets stuck on replay. So this is what it means when you're listening to this, because it can contradict this. But if you recognize your own feel, your own inner guidance, your own truth, you know that that's the right one to listen to. And I'm not talking about fear-based listening. It's totally, there's no agenda there. There's no right or wrong. It's just this, and it's a calmness. And the more you feel that, the more you recognize it. But once you get to know that, and your horses know you know that, they give you a quick reminder if you don't stick with it. As you said, that Sundance said to you, "No, you didn't ask me."
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when you were talking, I had this kind of sentence pop into my head because I've heard my mentor say it a lot, and it's you it's usually it's one of my like spiritual mentors when he is helping me, work through something, or like you said, work through a trigger and bypass that like it almost becomes like an instinct. He usually says, think with you're thinking too much. You're supposed to be feeling right now. Like use your heart, not your head. Um, and that's a big one. And I've actually started applying that sometimes with my horses when when I'm just like working with horses, because there's kind of two sides of this. There's kind of the side where I'm like, oh, what's happening in me that's making this come up in them. And then there's also sometimes it's like they are also their own being. We're all connected, and also they're their own being. And if I can help them address things by feeling and not overthinking too much, because some of that is just what horse training is, right? Is like helping them override the instincts, so to speak, and be open to learning new things and feeling new things and not being afraid of them. So there's kind of two sides of it. And then I also thought of something Locki says sometimes, which is fear has kept you safe. These triggers, these patterns have built up a safety mechanism in your brain, and this is keeping you safe, right? And so he says very kindly to the fear, thank you for your help, I don't need you right now.
That's a
And
great
so
line.
yeah, just like thank you, I appreciate, I because and the thing is, if you do that, it all makes sense in your head. It does. It actually starts lining up your heart in your head a little bit, and it's like, oh, I see what's happening. I can actually intellectualize it and feel it at the same time in a way, and be like, I understand what's happening, and I understand that these thoughts are here because my brain slash body thought that they needed to be here to keep me safe. And because it's even physiologically, like it made your legs turn into jelly and is like, no, like we can't do this because this we're not going to be safe. And that's just like patting fear nicely on the head and saying thank you for your help in the past.
Yeah, it's yeah, being friends with your fear. Well, it's part of who you are. You can't, it's not somebody else. It's part of you. And like you said, it was there for a reason. It's just when it becomes a prison that you need to say, well, okay, what's really going on? I'm safe right at this moment in time. So what? But it's
Yeah.
reprogram yourself to think differently, which takes a long
Oh yeah.
time, and it's ongoing. Definitely ongoing. Um,
Yes.
so tell me, when you're doing a show, what is it you're showing people, your relationship? So obviously you do little demos, don't you, with Sundance?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll give you like the whole overview. Basically, like if somebody wants me to be a teacher or a demonstrator or a performer at their show, we have different options. Um, we do a few different we have like a few main teaching demos that we'll do. Usually it's in like a smaller space, like a round pen area, um, where I teach, and those main ones are positive reinforcement made simple, because I do use positive reinforcement in my training. Um, the most popular one recently has been the power of choice in the horse human relationship. And what was the other one we do a lot, or we did a lot in the past? I think it was just like foundational liberty. Those are like the three main ones that we've done at like different events and expos. And those are the teaching, like talking demos. And then I've also done clinics where I help people with their horses. And then our I would say our favorite is the performances where we go out and perform Liberty work to music, and it's like a choreographed freestyle kind of performance. So those are, I think that's our favorite, both Sundance and I. We enjoy that. More recently, she's been having some anxiety around traveling. She's not loving like the trailer rides, and she gets some tension like in her body um, when we travel sometimes. And so I've been cutting back on the long trailer rides. She is 24 after all. The furthest we've gone has been like a 12-hour trip. So like a
Mm.
12-hour drive, which breaks obviously in between. We didn't drive 12 hours straight, but that's that feels a little too far at this point for
Mm.
her. Um, so I'm trying to cut back for her sake and for mine. I've got a lot going on right now, and I just started a new relationship, and we've got like there's just so much happening in my life. So this summer and fall, I had different things lined up, and I ended up cutting back and canceling some things just for like both of our sake. I could feel Sundance just saying, you know what, I'd like to be home, and we haven't even gotten into like the whole like basically what I call whole horse wellness side of my horsemanship life and my teaching. But that's a big part of what I do with horses as well is just wellness, like physical and emotional and um, I've been putting a lot of work and time and effort into making my horses space here at home a place that they really like to be. And I was like, you know what? I've put all of this time and money into this space. I would love if my horses would like to stay home and enjoy it. And if Sundance is telling me that she wants to be home, I kind of love that. So, so I said okay, and I canceled a bunch of the appearances we were going to be at. We might travel a little bit, but it's going to be fairly local, and it's not going to be 5-hour trailer rides hopefully. So,
Mm.
and maybe that'll come back in the future. Um, but for right now, where Sundance and I are both at, that's what's feeling right. So
And she's that, I mean, to do that again is a big thing, especially when you start to do things and you want to show people to step back. That's because you're listening, but it is a big thing. So, yeah, I honor you for doing that. I really do.
thank you.
Because we can learn things and we can get wrapped up in wanting to do something to show people but then you can get wrapped up in that whole experience as well. But that's human nature, that's part of it. So to step back and to listen to your horse and think, no, I mean 12 hours, that's probably like going from the top end of England to the bottom. That's a long journey, which I know is not for
Yeah.
the States. But she's lucky to be with you and vice versa. I'm just going to see if anybody wants to ask any questions. So if there's anybody would like to ask Susan any questions, that would be lovely, and we can share those. So can you see the comments, by the way? I should have said to you earlier, are you able to see the comments on your screen?
I saw a few like as they popped up. Yes.
Yeah, you should have an area where you can actually see, but don't worry about that. I shared
Okay.
many anyway. So would you like to ask me a question? I don't know why, but would you like to ask me a question, Susan?
I don't know. I didn't really think that far.
You don't have to have a
I would
question.
love to. I would love to actually know though where your um. So yes, actually, I do have a question. So
Okay.
because we talked briefly, or we talked on the phone last week or the week before, just
Mm-hmm.
fairly briefly, and you had wonderful things to say about my lovely pony Koa. Um, and he's amazing, and he's doing better, by the way, because he was having some health issues, and he's actually doing a lot better. But I would love to know how you connect with, what I would call, or what it is to you, what I would call, God and the spirit, and it's all connected, because I'm so fascinated by the the people that I meet that it feels like I'm on the same page with, and we just are just slightly different terms. And so
Hmm.
it's so amazing to me when I meet people who are, they love to listen to horses and communicate with horses, and it feels like it's all the same thing and it's all connected. So I don't know, maybe it's less of a question and more of an observation, but it's just as amazing to me when I feel that in somebody. Because maybe partly because of, my background and how I was taught in like the church I was raised, which is basically if you
Hmm.
don't believe exactly this certain way, then you probably have nothing in common with me.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, I'm in awe of you really because of what you do. So for me, sitting here in my little room, I'm thinking, wow, she has such a connection. Um, and it's with your horses, but it's with yourself. So I can see this beautiful woman sat before me that's just blossoming and glowing. And if that's just the tip of it, who knows where that's going to take you in every direction. But it's about fullness for your life, how you feel and view the world. It's a different place. And we all wake up in the morning as a different person. We're not always the same person we was yesterday. Our cells change, we rejuvenate, but also our soul is expanding, our intuition, our guidance. So you call that God. I call it universe, guidance, only because when I was a child, I was religion was a strong thing again, and you was forced. So I went totally the opposite way. In fact, I couldn't even say the word God because it just reminded me of old programs where it's fine now. I can say that and it's not a problem. But when you talk to people, exactly the conversation you've been saying about your own understanding, you're learning about you, and everything's connected. That's exactly how I feel. And I think more people are discovering that, and we don't have to have the same view, but we understand that there's another side. It's not about hate or making somebody do something they don't want to do. It's having an equal partnership. It's having a voice, and some don't have voices, so it's being the voice for that other, hence equine voices. um, And you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to get it right. And they don't expect you to get it right. So animals do not expect you to be perfect. And in fact, the first thing they say is they want you to sort your life out, sort yourself out, because how can you
Yeah.
help me if you can't help yourself? How can you love me if you can't love yourself? How can you accept me if you can't accept yourself? And that's with every aspect. As you said, your shadows, your imperfections, but these are part of you. And if you're ashamed of them, I don't know why I'm talking like this, so I'm obviously channeling, then it's part of you you're denying. Horses don't deny any part of them. They might have little, they're all different. So they might go through the motions because they know going through the motions means I get a meal at the end of the day, I get a bit of rest. That might be their life. Who's to say that that's not what they wish for at that moment? And it's the same as my view of a horse should have the freedom to come and go, not shut in. But that's my view, and so I do my very best to do that. But I am limited to the land. So in the UK, having a bit of land where you can do that is a luxury because you're not able to do that at certain places because it's a premium. So if you can have your horses out 24/7, that's a bit of a luxury. Some horses might not want to do that for other reasons. I don't think it's because they want to go in necessarily, but they may want to be with the herd that goes in. If they're out in the field and the herd are going in, they want to be in because they want to be close to the herd. It's not always quite the way we perceive it to be. People say my horse wants to be in the stable. They may do, but they may actually want to come in for other reasons. It's about having choices, and if you are able to give your horses choices, then you should be proud of that. It might not be the perfect life that you'd like for them, but it's the best that you can do at that time. So I must be talking about this because there might be somebody listening to this conversation that reason. But you shouldn't beat yourself up, because at that moment you're doing your very best with what you have in your means. I mean, I used to laugh years ago, my previous horse. I would have shoes with holes in because I couldn't afford new shoes, but I needed shoes for my horse. My horse now doesn't have
Yeah.
shoes. She's barefoot because that's the way I'm going now.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't mean to say every horse should be barefoot. It might be that for some reason a horse needs a shoe at that moment, but that's a whole nother podcast. So it's just about being with what you've got at that moment, assessing the situation, listening, and what's right then, now, today. Don't stick at it and think that's it, because it will change as we change, as they physically change, as we emotionally change, they emotionally change too. It's an ongoing thing. You never get it
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
because it's always changing. You get glitches and you get moments when it's like, oh, I love this. I just want to put this in a box, this very, very moment. But would it be as precious if it was exactly the same the whole time? Who knows?
Oh, absolutely not.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. And it was what I was feeling, but I don't know why I necessarily needed to ask it, but it was what I was feeling, so it was perfectly aligned with what I was feeling, which is great. I would love to add something to what you were saying about the horses not expecting us to be perfect and rather just wanting us to do what we can within our means at the time. Is it okay if I add something to that?
Mhm.
So I had this experience. I've been for the last few years. I have some horses in my herd who are metabolic. My little pony Painted Dream, she foundered when I was young, and so I have some. I need to be careful with them, and uh, I have been working on building like a paddock track system, if you're familiar with that,
Mhm.
for them, and they love it. I know that I'm sure they would prefer to be able to go out on giant fields. I don't have access to that for them. Um, we have one pasture and it has beef cattle on it, and I don't have access to like large fields that I can monitor and make sure that they're not gonna, overdo it or overeat or whatever. So they have a paddock track system and they love it, but I constantly, for the past 2 years since starting it, have been like beating myself up about not having it perfect. Like there's still an area that gets muddy when it rains, and I would just love if it would all be fully surfaced and none of it would ever get muddy. And I'm just like, I'm not there yet. And there was a time this spring when I went out and it had rained, so there was muddy areas, and like I wasn't staying after the poo picking as well as I wanted to be, and I was depressed about it, and I was just like, and I was finding myself going out to the barn and getting like angsty about it, and like not, it wasn't peaceful. And a few of the horses this one day when this was happening, a few of the horses came up to me, and I felt them just telling me, we would rather you just be here with us than than be like trying to make everything perfect. I just felt them telling me that, and I don't even remember exactly like how it was worded because it was more of a feeling. It was just like they really just wanted me to be present there and not like it. They aren't asking me to make it all perfect, and I still have goals for my track system. I still have goals for making my horses' lives better all the time. Because that's just what we do as horse people. If we're this invested, we're just like, I just want it, like, it's never going to stop. I want it to be better all the time. Um, and more enrichment and more enjoyment for my horses and just more things for them to live the best life they could possibly live. But that was an eye opener for me because my horses just really straight up came and asked me to please stop freaking out that I wasn't being perfect for them.
That's it. That's communication, girl. You got it in one. There you go. So you've answered your own question.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we've got a couple of questions. So
Okay.
Gail says, "What was the most significant breakthrough for you?" That's Gail from Canada.
Hmm. Is I'm not sure what she's like what it's in reference to because I feel like we probably um was it, I don't know if it was like in reference to a certain thing we were talking about in the conversation, or do you think she means just in general, like overall?
Just in general, but I think you probably did answer that. I think it's what you, uh, but it's not me to it's for you to answer. Yeah, you did.
I
I
would
think you
say,
talked about that.
yeah, I think I did talk about that. That's why I was like wanted to clarify.
Mm.
I think oh, actually I have a good answer. I don't know if this is the same, because there was a few there I feel like there was a few really big breakthroughs for me, but I know one of the big ones was, this was after I had been performing with Sundance. We were going, like, we were traveling from, Pennsylvania to Kentucky to Ohio, different places, performing and teaching, and Sundance said, I don't want to do this. And I, like, she was repeatedly showing me that this isn't what she wanted to do. And I know now that it was because I was just fully immersed in performing, and I was really fully trying to be something that we weren't, which was, again, like, I was trying to make sure everything was portrayed perfectly. Choreography and our performances had to be on point and down to the second, and I was being really specific with things. And Sundance is very, she will happily do what I ask, but she has to know why. And I didn't even know why we were doing it, because I was just a constant go, 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 and perform. And so I think that was a huge breakthrough for me, was realizing that, um, not, if I'm doing this in a, like, a performance mindset or a performance spirit, which performance in this context, I'm talking about making things, either trying to make things appear a certain way, or performing something that's not really there. Like, it's inauthentic, it's incongruent, it's not, that's what I'm talking about in this context with performance, because I've gotten in trouble in the past for bashing the word performance a little bit, um just like in the horse industry, and in like in people in general, talking about performance triggers people a little bit, because usually then the people who are in the performance sides of horses get offended if you say that performance is bad. So I'm not talking about showing, although there's things I can say about showing that we all would love to see change. But that is that was I think that was a big breakthrough for me, was getting rid of the performance mindset, and realizing that, honestly, like, if you go to a show like that and you see somebody do a performance, do like a Liberty freestyle demonstration, any kind of demonstration like that, it's it feels a lot more authentic if it's not completely perfect, because no performance I have ever done has been perfect. And I have more people coming up to me after ones where, Sundance is out there at Liberty, and if she, like, leaves and then comes back, more people will come and comment on that afterwards than if she doesn't leave at all, because they'll be like, it was really cool how you brought her back, or it was really cool that I heard you talk in your demo this morning about how you want her to have a choice, and then I saw in your performance tonight that she ran off and then came back, and I saw you, give her the choice. So more people connect with it, because it's real, if you're
Mm.
not doing it out of, like, a performance spirit. So
Perfect. Yeah, being authentic, as you said, that was a perfect. And Gail says, "Wonderful, thank you, Sam." So we'll have one more question, and then I think we'll start to finish off. So Sam says, "Who's influencing you?" I think she means now. Who's You've obviously talked about Locki, who I know
yes,
you've done a podcast with, but it's not out yet, is it? So that's
it's
something
not
to
out.
look
Oh, yes.
forward to.
I would say I feel like, based on the timeline that I figured out, just because I was getting a little bit anxious to know, like, when it was happening, so I figured out, like, how long from recording to release it kind of was for a lot of his podcasts. Um, and I think it should be literally one of these next weeks. So I'm crossing my fingers for it. But yes, Locki, it's been huge. What the things I've learned from Locki, just even in the last several months, he invited me to come down to a clinic he did in Maryland. So it was in person. He had me come down as his guest, and he was just incredible. And I learned so much from him. So definitely Locki. Um, there was it just feels like there's this long line of people who influenced me throughout like my life and my horsemanship journey. And it's kind of led me to a place now where I'm not necessarily learning from just one person. There's kind of different people that I pull threads of information and education from, and just inspiration. And I've like just different people that I feel a connection to. And
Hmm.
then I just like things start flowing and I learn things. And a lot of these people are on social media and they probably have no idea I even exist. And I just quietly watch and learn. So. But yeah, Locky's a great follow if your listeners are looking for somebody to just 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 in general, his business is emotional horsemanship and he
Mm.
embodies that very well. So
Yeah, I came across Lockie from Warwickshire's podcast, who I listened
yeah.
to. Although I haven't listened to it for a while, I was listening to it quite frequently in the car usually. And
Yeah, Warwick is amazing as well.
yeah, yes, yeah. There's lots of different people that are looking at things in a different way. And Warwick's a good example because he said he's a completely different horse person now to what he used to do and how he used to train horses. Um, yeah, and Lockie was going to be a guest, but I had to cancel it for some reason. So I've just got to chase him up and arrange another one.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So Gail, could you name some of them? So you just mentioned Lockie.
Name some of the influences
Yeah.
probably that I said have been like in my life. Um, So the Liberty trainer that I saw when I was 17, that was at the Horse World Expo, his name is Luke Gingrich, and I will happily give him a shout out because he's amazing at what he does. I would say our styles are pretty different now, and our approach to horsemanship is a little different now. But I still really support what he's doing because I see him making a really big difference in the horse industry, and like that was like a gateway drug for me. So I will never not be appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like our paths kind of like I learned a ton from him and now we're kind of going like slightly different ways. I will always give honor to him for that because that was a huge piece of my journey. Um, and then Kaylee Marie is another one. She's um, from Rhode Island. She is also she's Liberty work. Her style is very she's kind of incorporating like classical dressage and biomechanics and that kind of thing into her Liberty training. So a lot of like um, postural training and quote unquote correct movement and she's like has a big emphasis on that. Warwick has been also been a huge influence for me. And I actually got to meet him at the Horse World Expo this year. So fun fact, so the Horse World Expo when I was 17, where I first met Luke and saw him perform with his horse, do the Liberty thing. So 6 years later was this past March, and I got to perform with Sundance in the very same big like Expo night show that I had seen him perform in 6 years before that. And
Wow.
that was amazing. It was like such a full circle moment. It was
Mm.
incredible. And Warwick was there at the event as a clinician, and just by like crazy like God thing, wild happenstance, Warwick's booth was next to mine in the trade show. And I got to chat with Warwick, and here's how we met. And this is me being like little Amish fangirl. I walked into my booth the one day, and he comes up to like the barrier between our two booths, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Warwick," and like he introduced himself, and he's like, "I saw your demo yesterday. That was incredible." And I was like, "What?" So here he had like stood. We were doing like the positive reinforcement made simple demo, and Warwick was watching, and I had no idea. I'm really glad I didn't know that he saw it because I fangirl over Warwick because he's incredible, and like you said, the difference between the horseman he used to be and how he works with horses now is kind of wild, and I've learned a lot from him. So and then yeah, I would say those are probably the four main ones actually. Luke Gingrich, Kaylee Marie, Warwick Schiller, and Locki.
Oh, thank you. So I hope that answers your question, Gail. I'm sure it has. Well, Susan, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, but I do feel that we've just scratched the surface, and it would be lovely to have you back again because now you see how it works, and we've met face to face, and I'll maybe put some slides on of Sundance and what was your Shetland again called?
So I have Dream, who is my
Yeah.
tiny little sorry, not my tiniest one. Dream is my miniature Shetland, and
Mm.
then I have a dwarf mini pony called Koa,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then I have Lyric, my quarter horse.
So we could do like some slides and things, but would you like
Yeah,
to come back and have a chat again sometime?
absolutely, absolutely. I would love that.
Oh, it's been lovely, and I know you had a few little glitches. And the thing is, it's technology, and you don't know whether it's going to work or not. But I'm glad it did.
Yes.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers, the listeners, before you go? Any words of encouragement that you'd like to add?
I didn't like practice anything or think about it before, but I think if I were to leave the listeners with something, it would just be listen to your horses, listen to yourself, um, and like maybe make an extra effort today to be present.
That's perfect, girl. Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm going to just pop you out, Susan, if you don't mind just waiting so I can say bye personally before you go. Um,
Absolutely.
so, so say bye to the
All
viewers.
right. Bye, guys.
What a pleasure. What a lovely young woman. Absolute pleasure. And oh my goodness, if I had half the talent that she has in my little finger, that would be awesome. Isn't it funny how you look to people and they look at you in one way and you look at them in another? Um, yeah, lovely, lovely, lovely lady. And I can't wait to chat to her again. I will post any links to her website. So if you'd like to ask her any questions, she has an email address that will be on her Facebook page, I think. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Susan directly, then please do so, or I can pass them on for you. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. It's getting back into doing podcasts again. I always get like boom, boom, boom heartbeats, only because I want it to go well and to flow. But it did, so that's fine. So thank you for the people that joined and your questions. And I shall be around again soon with another podcast. I'll let you know when. But until then, thank you very much. Take care and bye for now. Bye.